From Castle Rexworth and the Rexworth Estates, I bid you good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whenever you are. My name is Rexworth, Lord Rexworth. And joining me at my side is Zoe the Demon Fox for another round of reading ASMR. We are going to be continuing with Zoe's book, The Realm, A Tale of Blood and Souls. And fingers crossed we may actually finish it tonight. But we
For
shall
those
see.
curious, we're on episode 9.
9 episodes, really?
Yep,
Goodness.
This is, well, under my playlist, it's called Packed Reads. This is Packed Reads, episode 9.
Very nice. Right. Zoe is tagged on my stream, so please go follow her if you haven't already. We also do it this way for chat, since Stream Elements has decided to work tonight.
This works for one of us. I still have to be paying fucking attention to see if people have followed me. Streamlabs is just like, oh, someone followed you? Well, too bad. I don't feel like telling you.
Right, so, link is there in chat for everybody. All of my links are available at lordrexworth.com. That is lordrexworth.com. The Discord can also be accessed on my side of chat. There's the link. And also make sure that you're following the both of us on Twitter. I can be found at Lord Rexworth, and Zoe can be found at Zoe the Demon Fox. So, with all that out of the way, let's get started here. Let me tap the record button. And we shall begin. Chapter 59. The Beast of Blood. Zoe let out a sudden gasp as she forced herself to a sitting position and wrenched Modigan's sword out of her gut. The wound regenerated faster than normal due to her precious trinket, even though it now stood in front of her in a human form. Zoe got to her feet as Modigan wandered about, siphoning blood from the ground to reconstitute her crystalline body. Finally, Modigan turned. She and Zoe staring unblinkingly at one another whilst the battle around them had broken into small yet violent skirmishes around them. The Demon Queen looked away, taking note that Modigan's grey eyes were eerily similar to Styx's own. Finally, Modigan let out a sigh.
I did all this for you, but seeing you fight against me like this, I'm at a loss.
Modigan rubbed her chin for a moment.
Maybe Styx has your soul. I'll just have to take it back from her.
Zoe raised an eyebrow, but before she even had the chance to speak, the red-headed woman lunged at her. Zoe did not react as she felt Modigan's cold hand on her cheek.
I claim...
An intense pain shot up Modigan's arm before suddenly shattering up to the elbow, forcing her to step back and gasp. Zoe let out a soft giggle and shook her head as she crossed her arms, watching Modigan regenerate the arm.
Blood and soul aspect both, huh? How did you break my arm?
The former queen's eyes glowed faintly as she smirked, taking a step forward. Modigan stepped back, brandishing her blade.
I'm not sure if you still have the memories of your time hanging around my neck, but you were a gift to balance my powers. I couldn't even access my own demon form without you. You think you'd be able to take my soul that easily?
Modigan slowly lowered her sword.
But then, the upstart doesn't have your soul? Why are you fighting me then?
Zoe raised her hand, causing Modigan to fall silent.
My soul is my own. What I want to know is why you're trying to kill the girl I love.
Modigan seemed shocked for a few moments.
The girl you... but then...
She spun in a circle before brandishing her blade, but this time in confusion instead of aggression.
She's trying to take your throne,
The sword lowered, crunching into the snow. She closed her eyes.
I feel I've made a grave mistake. Well, that's why...
Zoe froze. She saw snowflakes suspended in the air between them, unmoving. The memory of a conversation she'd had only a few hours ago came back to her.
Cagliostro has located a few more of his damnable codexes.
My queen.
Fuck.
Zoe and Morrigan turned, seeing a familiar mask staring back at them, cracked and smiling. An open book lay in the gloved hands. I'm happy to have found both of you here. He closed the book and let go of it. As the codex began to orbit around his body, Cagliostro pulled another from the folds of his cloak and cracked it open, barely even glancing at the page. Siotnu Fola. Zoe snarled.
I warned you the next time you tried to use your precious books on me, I'd kill you, listener. Zoe!
Around the pair, a multitude of black rifts began to rip open the frozen air, pieces of smoldering rock launching out of them. Misery's end manifested in Zoe's hand as she turned and sliced through one of the rocks. She snarled.
What's the plan this time, asshole? Your time freeze trick didn't work on me. I'll get ahead and let you know throwing space rocks at me isn't going to do much either.
While it was true Zoe and Morrigan were safe, the crystalline woman couldn't help but watch with concern as fiery doom rained down in a larger area than just at them. Large craters were formed, kicking up snow, dust, and blood as the skirmishers around them, trapped in Cagliostro's time lock, were obliterated. Morrigan took a step backwards, foot crunching into blood-soaked snow as she tried to think. She wasn't given long, hearing a shattering of glass and feeling an intense pain in her midsection. Glancing downward, she saw Cagliostro's fist sticking through her, contained in its grip her core, the triple flames of her dual aspect glowing brightly within.
Wait.
Cagliostro's hand retracted as he chuckled. You were smart to distance yourself from me at the river, my dear. However, you are still a simple trinket, created by me to serve my queen. He chuckled, looking down at the core in his hands. A rift opened behind him, and he began to step backwards through it, speaking a demonic rune as he noticed Morrigan lunging for him. Rosa. His confidence left him instantaneously, as the freeze spell failed and Morrigan closed in, gripping her core and pulling with such force as to extract Cagliostro from the rift before he could escape.
Give that back.
Insolent fool! Splendida! This time the spell worked as intended. More crystal shattering as Morgan was blasted into the air, her legs completely decimated and her upper half slamming into the snow a few feet away. Cagliostro brushed himself off, turning as he felt a tap on his shoulder. The wisdom demon had little time to react before he too was knocked off his feet, a devastating uppercut slamming into the bottom of his mask, cracking the wood and throwing him into the snow. Zoe's eyes glowed faintly, her arm encased in a hard carapace of solidified blood.
I've absorbed plenty of blood from this battle, Cag. This'll be a cakewalk.
Out of the corner of her eye, she watched Morrigan's core, knocked free from the punch, land in the snow nearby. Her attention was regained as Cagliostro began cackling. The headless and now maskless body sat up. A flame ignited in the neck hole with rigged metal spikes growing upward around it. The robes tattered a bit at the sleeves, and bottom and armored pauldrons formed at the shoulders. Zoe was unimpressed.
So that's your demon form?
More codexes rose out of the flaming neck and opened, orbiting around Cagliostro. He floated swiftly over to the core, reaching down towards it only for it to seemingly explode. As crystal shards drove Cagliostro back, his distorted voice emanated from the neck hole. Interesting. The core remained sitting in the snow, yet seemed smaller than before. You're sacrificing your own integrity to keep me away. How many times can you keep that up before you run out of crystal to expend? Instead of closing in, one of the books turned and a dark tendril shot out of it. Monaghan, who had begun crawling towards her core, closed her eyes tightly but opened them and gasped when she heard Cagliostro's snarl. Zoe had thrown Misery's end, a dark blade severing the tendril. The Demon Queen smirked.
I never said you could take the essence of Apocalypse back, now did I? I don't care if you carve the shard from the Eye of the Warp yourself. Morgan belongs to me.
Distorted chuckling surrounded both of them. I don't recall saying you could keep it.
Zoe, look out!
A black rift opened above Zoe's head. She looked up as a gigantic bookshelf fell out of it. For a split second, Monaghan watched her attempt to teleport before the fox demon vanished beneath a pile of shattered wood and wayward literature. Cagliostro cackled. You cannot displace time and space if I freeze it, my queen. He turned to Monaghan as she desperately crawled forward and grasped her core. Even as her body began to reconstitute itself from the blood and shards around her, she knew Cagliostro would get to her before it finished. It truly is amazing. It truly is amusing to me how weak you become as a humanoid, my dear. I expected more. A runed axe slammed into the back of Cagliostro, causing him to pause. He slowly turned, noticing as Hellbringer emerged from the ruined bookshelf, gripped tightly by Zoe, although the fallen queen had not fully extracted herself yet. What drew his attention the most, however, was the fully armored Gedonite stomping towards him. Kos fell-handed. The listener let out what sounded like a yawn before waving his hand. Two rifts opened around Kos, multiple masked individuals stepping out and surrounding him. You will make a nice toy for me later. Kos wrestled with the cultists, letting out a glorious battle cry as he shield-bashed one and tackled another through its rift. Cagliostro floated in silence for a moment before making a gesture, his four black books pointing at each other and spinning, firing simultaneous beams of energy toward their center. Cagliostro aimed them at Zoe with a bored sigh. Fine, if you two must be so stubborn and lively, I'll simply destroy all of Gedony to make sure I get you. By this point, Monaghan was on her newly reconstituted legs, Zoe by her side. The two shared a glance before Monaghan gripped Zoe's shoulder.
One last time?
Zoe hesitated before a steely look of determination appeared on her face.
One last time.
Cagliostro hesitated as the snow within his time bubble began to melt rapidly, and steam obscured the pair. He floated backwards a few feet as realization took hold. No! The combined energy of four codexes fired into the stream when suddenly a gigantic hand reached out like a million streams of blood and frayed cables, barely containing yellowish energy within, and slammed into the ground. The shockwave nearly knocked the listener from the air. He gripped the dark codex close, frantically flipping pages, as another arm reached out to the steam, and a gigantic horned head rose above. The time bubble shattered. Jagged teeth, formed from more blood seams, opened wide as the enormous demon roared. The raiders and warriors of Gedony were well known for their bravery, but this, now free from Cagliostro's time lock, they ceased their combat and looked on in terror and silence. The monstrous demon before them was only an upper torso anchored to the ground, but it did not need legs. Genevieve, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome in, raiders. Thank you all so much.
I thought this effect would be really cool, but I also can't read the Nordic underneath it.
Oh dear.
It does look cool if you're reading it on your own.
And then a giant snake showed up. Hello, Brit. I did tell you I'm taking full advantage of us being this little bit closer. Thank you. Thank you, my love.
I used to think you could see the future. But if you could, you never would have given me a piece of the Eye of the Warp.
Resort, thank you for the redeem. Ada.
Imagine if that's followed immediately by silence!
Give me just a moment here.
You know, in the old version of the book, this scene went very differently.
Say that again?
In the old version of the book, this went very differently. Morgan was still delusional, but she was fighting for Styx instead of Zoe.
Interesting. Well, it does seem to make sense, though, when it comes to her senses and realizes the true enemy.
Hi, Connor. It is ASMR time, Connor. Would you like to stick around?
Welcome, Jen. Indeed. She'll sleep well tonight after that.
The true enemy was the friends we made along the way.
Right, continuing on. The beast of blood let out a harsh, earth-rumbling laugh. Cagliostro frantically opened a rift. With only 4 of his precious books, he stood no chance against the Queen of Hell's true form. The floating wisdom demon was not given the slightest chance to escape, as faster than its size would suggest, the beast of blood's glistening arm rose, then fell, crushing Cagliostro into an impact crater. The blood began to evaporate rapidly, retracting towards the chest, and after a few swift moments, the beast of blood was gone again. Zoe cracked her neck before she and Morrigan moved to the crater. Cagliostro had returned to his human form as well, his ever-smiling mask cracked, yet still covering his face, his robes tattered, and his books damaged and torn all around him. Morrigan took a deep breath, returning her core to her chest and allowing the flesh to reform over it.
It's over then.
Zoe crossed her arms, a bead of sweat rolling down her face.
Somehow, I doubt that killed him.
She glanced at Morrigan.
Whatever you do to him, make it slow. And after that, release the clans from your thrall.
Morrigan blinked.
That's it?
Zoe nodded slightly.
I don't need or want an army, and I'd feel better for the Garenites to have their free will back.
She hesitated, knowing that Styx still had claim to the other half of the Garenite clans, but she trusted Styx more. After all, Styx said she would release them once she gained control of the Obsidian Throne. Zoe turned away.
I've had my fun.
Koss was gone, right. Another bead of sweat dripped down Zoe's face. She felt overheated. Something was wrong. She wavered on her feet slightly.
I'm gonna gather my half of the clans and get them back to Iron Keep. You should do the same with your half. Take me back to Frosthold so we can straighten things out.
Zoe teleported quickly. Alone now, Morrigan only nodded slightly. She'd noticed something was wrong and looked down at her own hand. While together as the beast of blood, she'd felt it clear as day, too. Zoe was unstable. Her soul felt wrong. It felt like whatever it was had been passed on to Morrigan. The crystalline woman was torn from her thoughts as she noticed Cagliostro trying to stand up. In a flash, she manifested her sword and tossed it like a spear, the blade impaling Cagliostro's shoulder and anchoring him to the ground. He sighed, then chuckled as she came closer. You cannot kill me, Morrigan. As the guardian of the hidden librarium, I will simply... She said nothing. Instead, both of her hands ignited and she reached down, grasping his cheeks. He gasped at the feeling of her cold hands against his flesh.
I don't want to kill you. Far from it.
Morrigan winced as her stomach growled suddenly. Behind his mask, Kag's eyes widened. You can't be serious. He began to yell out as he had felt intense burning from Morrigan's hands. The yell turned to a snarl before Cagliostro suddenly forced himself upward, ripping his shoulder off the blade. You will not devour my soul, stupid bauble! There was a flash of light and a long, drawn-out scream. When Morrigan could see again, she was on her knees, alone in the crater. She realized she was the one screaming, and quickly closed her mouth. She noticed that 2 of the tattered black books were still in the crater with her.
Huh?
A curious hand reached out and opened one, and to her surprise, she could feel the power radiating from the books. Morrigan pressed a hand to her chest in realization as a slow smile crossed her face. Cagliostro had not escaped fast enough, and with a small piece of his soul consumed by her, she now held the power of at least a few of his precious books. As the Gedonites around her slowly recovered from witnessing the beast of blood, Morrigan began to giggle to herself. Maybe she should take the throne instead. Chapter 60. Passing of the Torch. A spurt of demonic red flame signaled Zoe's return to the throne room of Castle Darkstone. Almost immediately, she collapsed against her shattered throne, bracing herself against the arm. Getting the clans to stop fighting and return to their homes had been difficult, and the fever that had stricken her only continued to get worse.
You idiot. You shouldn't have let her try like that.
She slammed her fist down against the smooth throne, gritting her teeth.
No. I'm not gonna fall here just because of that.
A soft growl emanated from her before she was finally able to stand up straight, forcing her energy to obey her. She glanced briefly at the crumpled pile of bones and robes that was once Nox, eyebrow-raising as she noticed a scroll had rolled out of his pockets. She stumbled over to it and unfurled it, reading over it for a few moments before tossing it over her head, where it landed neatly on the obsidian throne.
Styx can read it when she takes Darkstone.
The former queen staggered to her scrying pool and braced on the edge, raising her wrist to her mouth and biting down, ripping at the bruised skin and letting the blood flow into the basin. Her energy regenerated the arm once enough blood had spilled. First, the pool showed Rise and Da Vinci. They were no longer in hell, but forging weapons inside a Blackstone's guild. The fox demon frowned, but as the pool's vision seemed to rise and show outside the Isle of Pillars, she could see ships on the horizon, similar to the ones that had attacked Iron Keep. A scowl crossed her face.
Beerus, I need to hurry this up.
The pool of blood shimmered before showing Calico in a grassy field of Heaven's Light Springs. Fallen and pure angels both gathered in front of her, listening to some sort of speech. Zoe couldn't help but smirk slightly.
Guess that means Petra's dead. Good for her.
Zoe gripped the scrying pool tighter, her legs beginning to weaken and shake beneath her. She used the pool to locate her most loyal advisors and companions before letting out a soft sigh and smiling slightly.
Everything's ready, Styx. I just have to get you here.
She shakily reached into her cloak and pulled out a gold coin.
Styx, my beloved watcher. My shattered soul calls to you. Come, take what is yours. Take the kingdom of hell. I pass the torch to you.
She flipped the coin into the blood pool and slowly stepped away. With her final goal completed, she teleported. A few days had passed since Nox had attempted to assassinate Styx. The Watcher had slowly recovered from the attack, and seemingly seemed unaffected from consuming a chunk of Nox's soul. Her hallucinogenic episodes still continued on and off, but they'd lessened somewhat. Currently, Styx idly sat on her couch, giggling to herself while Oedipus and Evelyn had an argument over the corrupted angel's addiction.
It wasn't my fault Rise makes artificial warp stone. How was I supposed to know the one I tried to imbibe had fire aspect built in?
Oedipus shook her head and sighed, crossing her arms.
If you stop... Wait, no. If you stopped sneaking into the big room, we wouldn't have this problem in the first place.
Phobos could be heard laugh wheezing from the shadows nearby, and Evelyn let out a louder sigh than Oedipus's.
Whatever. Who's cooking?
She quickly fell silent, noticing a pained expression on Styx's face.
You alright, Wolfie?
Styx slowly sat up from the couch and clasped her hands together.
We have to go to Darkstone.
Oedipus stood up hesitantly.
What's wrong?
Styx looked up at each of them in turn, shrugging with a sad, concerned look.
I am not sure, but Zoe summoned the ferry to Darkstone.
While it was entirely possible to simply open a rift and have the ferry instantly reach the port at Hell's Gate, Styx decided she'd rather sail down the river instead. Phobos perched himself at the front while Evelyn and Oedipus sat by the steering oar to be near Styx. The two dark saints talked quietly amongst themselves while Styx's gaze remained solidly forward, watching the scenery pass by. As they neared the magma plain, something bumped against the boat and pulled it slightly to the side. The Watcher let out a soft sigh and peered over the edge, mismatched eyes widening.
Let's see. Watcher.
The Gedonite soul cleared its throat.
Apologies, I meant your highness.
Styx slowly let go of the steering oar and went to her knees at the side, reaching down to caress the ghost's cheek. Oedipus and Evelyn fell silent.
This must be important, right? Souls in my river rarely try to talk to me directly like this.
The Gedonite nodded. A few more Gedonite souls manifested near the ferry, remaining silent but watching the conversation expectantly. You sure you don't want me to voice this one?
Do you want to?
Yeah. Let me do this one. The name's Dietrich here.
Please, Dietrich. Just call me Styx.
He chuckled, but his polite smile faltered slightly. I'll get to the point. I'm not here to bargain for my life, but I'd like to request a favour all the same. Me and all the lads, actually. There's a good friend of ours, named Morrigan. She's a bit confused in her head, but she's a good lass. If you see her, let her know we're all right, and it ain't her fault. And if you could, protect her. She ain't used to being human. She needs the help. Dietrich chuckled again. She was afraid to fall asleep first I met her, because she thought sleeping meant she'd die. The ghostly warrior shook his head slightly. You'll recognize her quick. She's rather unique. Dead grey eyes, halo impaled on a set of horns, bright mane of red hair. Started calling her the Crystal Wolf round Frosthold. The ghost began to sink back into the river, growing more and more transparent, voice growing more and more distant. Taught her how to fly. As he and his comrades sunk back and below the ghostly water, Styx pressed a hand to her chest, her hand igniting with green flame for a few moments.
I hope your stay in the river is a short one, and you find paradise on the other side of the veil, noble Garanite.
After a few moments of silence, Evelyn came over and gently grasped Styx's shoulder.
You okay, Styx?
The wolf-eared demon nodded and stood up straight, wiping her eyes for a moment before returning to the steering oar. She gritted her teeth as she felt another episode strike her. Distorted copies of herself on the banks of the river laughed and pointed, sprinting along to keep up with her. They couldn't reach her here, though. Not here on the river, the domain of the Watcher. No matter what false entities her broken mind created, out on the water with her beloved and Eri, she was safe. Styx whispered to herself while staring defiantly at the distorted shadow of Salem that stood near the mast.
I will not be taken under here, not on my own river.
Her gaze rose, seeing Hell's Gate on the horizon and the majestic sight of Castle Darkstone levitating off the edge of the plateau.
I'm the Queen of Souls, after all. Ruler of Hell.
Something told her that Zoe's call wasn't just for a meeting. Soon enough, it'd be her sitting on the obsidian throne, whether she was ready for the responsibility or not. Chapter 61. Arrival of the Soul Queen. The ferry of the damned bumped gently into the dock at the Black Port, the dockyard that serviced all three of Hell's most notable rivers, the River of Souls, the primordial River Demonica, and the freshwater River Sapphire. While Evelyn moored the ferry to the dock, Styx and Erebus stepped onto the pier and began walking. Phobos vanished into the shadows to play the hidden guard dog.
Been a while since I've been in Hell's Gate. The last time I was here, Zoe just got her memories back.
Styx stuffed her hands into her trench coat pockets and clenched her fists nervously. Styx had sailed past Hell's Gate, capital city of the Dark Realm, on innumerable occasions, but it never failed to surprise her about the architecture. Mostly square and blocky buildings dominated the streets. Many were triangular or rounded roofs, and upside-down crosses adorning the doorways and the tips of taller structures. Styx smiled softly to herself. Demons had no religion, but the superstitions of the humans had caused them to adopt these upside-down crosses as a joke, and it had stuck. It definitely made some buildings look more interesting. A few demons wandering the streets noticed Styx, bowed politely before continuing on their way. All kinds of demons dwelled in Hell's Gate, ranging from human passing ones such as Styx or Erebus, bearing horns or animal ears, and some more monstrous like the spider girl Alana or the ice-covered frost demon Grimnir. The Watcher also noted many fallen, easily spotted due to their dark wings and cracked halos. At first the bows did not bother her, but as Styx passed more and more people, her feet began to move faster, as worry gripped her heart. Oedipus matched her speed.
Styx, slow down. She promised you the throne, right? It's probably why we're here. There...
Styx whirled around, causing the ex-Dark Saint to stop and recoil slightly.
Hi, Squishy. I didn't tell you this earlier because I didn't want everyone to panic alongside me, but... everyone who summons my fairy has a phrase that occurs naturally to them, related to their soul and their personality. Rise refers to her soul as iron, Vincent is bewildered, Ev's is corrupted, and Zoe's has always either been hollow or damned.
Oedipus nodded slowly, realization striking her.
What did you hear back at the cabin?
Styx took a deep breath.
Shattered.
Oedipus gripped Styx's shoulders tightly.
You've got no reason to listen to a word I say because of the things I've done, but hear me out. If something is wrong, if you just storm in there, you won't be able to think straight.
Styx shrugged her friend off and turned away.
I already can't thanks to Salem's sword. What are you two moping around for?
Evelyn approached them, all smiles.
And what's with the people? They keep bowing to me. It's kind of embarrassing getting all this attention.
Despite her feelings, Styx could not help but let out a laugh at her companion's attitude. She choked a few times, trying to suppress it. Oedipus turned to the fallen.
We think Zoe's already named Styx her successor, and considering your relationship, she likely mentioned that as well. It only makes sense for the people to bail to you as well.
Evelyn paused for a moment.
If that's true, then I guess Zoe called Styx here to take the throne, huh?
May our souls endure and deny all invitations to the river of death. A white-robed man had walked up to them, blood oozing from a crown of thorns on his head. He clasped his hands together and smiled.
May the river overflow those that accept it.
Styx replied automatically before she had even realized what she was doing, looking up at this new individual. Evelyn protectively stepped in front of the watcher, pulling Pox from her warpstone bag, and looked over the man.
Who the hell are you?
Oedipus stepped forward as well.
I know him. Zariah Greyfall. I'd thought the Dark Saints to Streethouse Greyfall after Zoe was overthrown.
Zariah chuckled, stroking his grey goatee. Oh, I assure you, Saint of Deception, they had tried. However, the Dark Saints were led by greater demons, and greaters have a habit of overlooking us lessers. He looked to Styx and bowed. Where are my manners? Forgive me, Styx Mirka. I am an ally of the former queen. She sent me to escort you to Darkstone. Evelyn and Styx shared a look.
Zoe sent you? Is she alright?
Zariah hesitated. Regretfully, I haven't seen her in weeks. However, she has painstakingly prepared everything for your arrival. He turned. If you'll follow me. As he began walking along the main road, Evelyn wrapped an arm around Styx as they followed.
Don't worry. If he tries anything, Erin and I will protect you, Wolfie.
Oedipus nodded, manifesting her thin blade. Deceit, and idly held it, blade pointed backwards.
Thank you both. Although, if anything were to go wrong, Phobos is on rooftops carrying soul blights and the maddening blade. It's not gonna be defenseless. Besides, if I have to, whoever's against me won't be for long.
Evelyn pulled Styx slightly closer.
Let's avoid that if we can, though.
The citizens of Hell's Gate continued to bow whenever they saw Styx approaching, but eventually Zariah led them down a side path, taking them to the edge of the plateau that overlooked the magma plains. From here, they could see Darkstone ahead of them, the massive castle, slowly dominating their view atop its island, held aloft by gigantic crops of black warpstone. A stone bridge, made flexible by magic, being the only land-based way to reach the castle. Still acting protective, Evelyn and Oedipus had decided to stand on either side, one keeping Styx away from the edge of the cliff, the other watching the dark alleyways of the homes on their right. As the tallest, Styx and Evelyn walked quickly, yet even so, Zariah's natural gait made him faster. Whenever he got too far ahead, he would slow and wait for the trio. Eventually, he stopped and began chuckling to himself. Styx raised an eyebrow.
What's funny, Zariah?
Oh, many things, my queen. Many things. Styx heard soft giggling around her and gasped as she noticed Evelyn and Oedipus staring at her blankly, giggling with reckless abandon. This was not the time for an episode. Zariah turned to face the Watcher, a smiling mask on his face. I see your concern, my queen, but worry not. This is in fact the best time, you see. Salem struck you with his blade due to a spell I had cast on his body. I think your mind has been worn down enough for you to understand the truth I desperately desire to tell you. He began laughing, the mouth of the mask splitting apart, jagged splinters of wood forming teeth. Lowly Watcher, let us chat. I'm going to take just a moment here to take another bite of my dinner and hydrate here.
Got your throat coating tea ready?
Actually, I ran out.
Oh no.
Though I do have some mineral water.
I'm just drinking Sprite. Well, chat, you got any questions while we wait? I will happily lore dump. Oh god, I can't recap the whole story in like a small period of time, Squishy. That's an after stream thing. Why is everyone so gay? Because I like Yuri too much. But I've been thinking of doing some yaoi in my next stories. Equal opportunity gays. Do you have any questions or comments, Rex, between bites of food? Cassie's question, did any relationship differ between this draft, and previous drafts? Well, since I only wrote this twice, not really, no.
You did mention one change. Modigan.
Still being delusional, but fought for Styx instead of Zoe.
Yeah. I mean, how did that look? What was the... How much difference was between that and what we just read?
The initial part still play out the same. She ends up in Frosthold and she starts mind controlling all of the Garenites there.
Mm-hmm.
But she gets her nickname Crystal Wolf because she was serving Styx in that version. Dietrich played a bigger part in that version.
Yeah,
I actually typed out like the bits about him teaching her how to fly and helping her figure out how to be human.
But you ended up deleting all of that.
I feel like it has a bigger emotional impact if this random Garanite just comes up and introduces himself like, she's a good lass. She's not doing anything wrong. She just needs to understand. I taught her all these things. She's a good person.
I don't know.
I guess it could go either way. It depends on who you are. Some would find more emotional impact in actually having seen what Dietrich did with her, and some people were probably like, well, shit, this guy just came out of nowhere. It's like, I did all this stuff with her. And it's like, fuck, I wish we could have gotten that. God, this poor guy.
I don't know. If I had to suggest, I would say it's worth putting back in. Those would make for some good scenes within the book.
I might... In the original version, I had a lot of flashbacks. I might re-add flashbacks into book 2.
Yeah. Hello, Lord Rexworth and Zoe. Hello, Action Bastard. How are you?
Hello!
Good to see you.
That's true, Cassie. I could make a short story out of it. Do a, like, 3 or 4 chapter thing.
Yeah. I'd be okay, just tired from the day job shift. Sounds like you've earned a break. A relaxing evening. Here's hoping you get one. Alright then, let's see. Let's go with... Indeed, that do be the plan. Excellent, excellent. Right, here we go with chapter 62. Styx Mirka. Styx blinked, and the next thing she knew, she was atop a cliff in the mortal world. Below her, jagged rocks invited her to leap. Styx jumped slightly as she felt Cagliostro rip her shoulder and lean past her to look at her. Let's start with the obvious, Watcher. You fear if the Fallen truly loves you. A fair concern, after all. You have her soul. You can control her actions. Your wants and desires can override their free will. You... Styx's fists clenched and she forced Cagliostro away, turning her back to the cliff and staring him down.
No.
Cagliostro took a step back, as if he'd been punched. That should have filled her mind with doubt. The world around them shimmered before showing a scene, a long way back of Evelyn and Styx, the former dying from mortal wounds inflicted by a frost ogre, and the latter claiming her soul to heal her.
You can't trick me, listener. She's been by my side forever, and she loved me before I took her soul. I don't need to influence her to make that a reality. Hi, Apple
But
Ninja.
there was still doubt in her voice as she said it, despite her strong conviction, and Cagliostro leapt at it. You doubt yourself even now. Honestly, what was Salem thinking? You could never be trusted to rule a kingdom.
Shut up.
Soul Blight appeared in Styx's left hand, the maddening blade in her right.
Salem may have broken my mind due to your influence, but no matter how much you try to damage my mind, you will never make me doubt the truth. Salem chose me to be queen because I was his best choice. Everyone loves me and always has. And before you even say it, yes, I trust Erebus with all my heart. She will not turn on me. Not now, not ever.
Both of her hands ignited with the soul flame, purple engulfing the maddening blade and green engulfing Soul Blight.
I'm sick and tired of being afraid. I'm sick and tired of being afraid to open my door, expecting to see some distorted thing running at me. Sick of the fear of closing my eyes, not knowing what nightmares will plague me, but all that I could handle as long as I had my family by my side.
Styx's mismatched eyes began to glow.
You've crossed the line.
Cagliostro's mask frowned before he began to transform into a distorted fusion of himself and Nox. You are nothing. As the monster charged forward, Styx let out a soft breath.
I am Styx Mirker, Queen of Souls and ruler of Hell.
She looked up at the beast.
The one who is nothing is you.
It turned to ash before it reached her. Her body felt cold again, colder than it usually did, before it suddenly warmed up. The shadow that had plagued her ever since the fight on the magma plains finally stepped into the light. Salem. He walked up to her and took her hand. I told you, Styx, you are stronger than you think. Stronger than my madness. Stronger even than the corrupted chunk of Nox's soul. I do not regret my choice. There was no better candidate for the throne. Yet I chose you for more than your strength, Styx. Evelyn, Erebus, and Phobos' dream form also stepped out of the shadows.
You're kind to understanding when you need to be. You could have kissed me else. I could have killed you when we were alone in the cabin. My fear could have been an act, but you trusted me and cared for me.
Phobos stepped forward. The dark silhouette of his dream form reached out and grasped Styx's shoulder.
Fuck, I don't remember the true voice I gave to Phobos.
Kind of hissy and snake-like, I remember.
Well, that's his, like, puppet voice. He has a different form when he's, like, in a dream. You have my soul, but it was I of my own volition that decided to become your bodyguard, Styx Mirker. Come, let's wake you up. The girls are worried.
Oh, one moment, my nightmarish friend. Styx blinked and found herself standing in front of a mirror under a spotlight. All around her was darkness. Salem stepped up behind her and held out the raven crown. Take the obsidian throne. You have earned it several times over. Styx hesitated, then grabbed the halo and held it above her head where it floated comfortably. The mirror shattered and the shadows brightened, showing Styx standing on the cliff again. But this time, down below, she saw the construction of a magnificent city. A city where angel, human, and demon could live in harmony. Behind her, cheers echoed. Styx turned to the crowd behind her, smiling nervously.
I'll try to run your kingdom to the ground, Zoe.
Another break, grabbing another slice of pizza.
I'll use this time to get to the bathroom then. Baby. I'm back.
And so am I.
What perfect timing.
Indeed. All right. Chapter 63. First Day on the Throne. When Styx finally opened her eyes again, she found herself laying in Zoe's bed in her old room. Evelyn was sitting beside the bed, face down against the covers, snoring. Her cracked halo wasn't levitating, simply laying propped against her head. Styx carefully slipped out from underneath the blankets, adjusting them to put over the angel, then quietly stepped out of the room. She was startled to run into Zariah out in the hall. "Oh, Your Highness, it is reassuring to see you up and about again." The robed demon bowed. Styx gave a slight nod, looking around.
Zariah, how long was I out?
Zariah stood up straight again and hesitated for a moment. 3 days." He cleared his throat. "As I was bringing you to the castle, you slowed to a stop and, without warning, began babbling to yourself and seemingly having a seizure. Your companions explained to me you'd been struck with Salem's infamous sword. What concerned me greatly is that they indicated this was the worst the madness had ever struck you, Your Highness. We rushed you here quickly, and as you crossed the threshold of the main gate, you began to calm. A corrupted one insisted on taking you to bed, where the two of you have remained this entire time." Styx nodded slowly.
I am really sorry about that.
Her fist clenched slightly out of embarrassment. But then she realized something. She could see the shadowy silhouette of Salem down the brightly lit stone corridor, yet no hallucinations other than Salem were around. Had she finally regained control of her own mind? Advisors and... My queen, are you listening? Styx shook her head slightly and blinked, smiling nervously.
Sorry, I wasn't. What were you saying?
Zerai simply chuckled and started again. "I'm aware you weren't exactly ready for this responsibility. However, Miss Zoe thought of that as well. No ruler can run a kingdom by themselves, after all." If you'll follow me to the throne room, there are some things to tend to. Oedipus is already there, and a few more of your companions are on their way. I'll keep your little nap secret. Zariah winked and turned, leading Styx through familiar hallways. As they passed the library, Styx slowed slightly.
You still haven't heard from Zoe?
I'm afraid not. However, she was born of the blood font. I doubt she is in much trouble. Perhaps she is keeping her distance so as to make your ascension to the throne as smooth as possible.
Maybe.
As they enter the throne room from one of the doors behind, Styx's jaw dropped at a gigantic pile of scrolls near the obsidian throne. Oedipus sat cross-legged near the stack, unfurling, reading, and tossing into separate piles. The ex-Dark Saint quickly stood with a grin of relief to see Styx and ran over, hugging her.
Evelyn and I were so worried about you. It's great to see you up again.
Styx returned the hug, but shuddered.
I think I should go knock myself out again. Where did all these scrolls come from?
Oedipus giggled.
Do not worry. It's not as bad as it looks.
She broke the hug and pointed.
A lot of them are just pledges of allegiance from Zoe's old followers.
She took Styx's hand and led her over to the throne.
I've sorted quite a few of them. I don't mind handling it myself. I think Zariah brought you down here for something else, though.
Indeed, indeed. If you'll have a seat, Your Highness. As Styx sat and Oedipus returned to sorting scrolls, Zariah stepped in front of the throne and went to a knee. As to get you used to it, I'll do this properly. He cleared his throat and stood back up, hands clasped behind his back before inclining his head toward the main door. To begin, I've taken the liberty of slowly bringing House Greyfall out of hiding. Styx noticed 2 armored guards in front of the door. As you don't know me well, I've only brought a handful to start with, enough that you may feel safe within the walls of Darkstone, but still few enough so as to not concern you if you're still suspicious of me. As time passes, I will bring more of the Greyfalls here, and also spread them amongst the cities of Hell, to act as guardians and a police force. Styx nodded slowly.
Sounds good.
Zariah nodded as well. A second order of business, the Saints. The 9 Dark Saints are obviously no more, as the only remaining members are Oedipus, Evelyn, Zoelira, and Phobos. As for the 9 High Saints, Lady Calico personally arrived yesterday to inform me that only herself, Kazak, Kali, and Irina remain.
Wait, what happened to Nox?
Oedipus looked up, biting her lip. Zariah hesitated. He's here on the castle grounds, but he is no threat to you. Styx could tell they were hiding something, but decided to wait. She switched topics.
I haven't seen Calico in a while. Is she alright?
Zariah nodded while Oedipus returned to work. She's fine, my queen. Lady Calico doesn't have as much time to spare as she is still squashing small pockets of resistance in heaven. His eyes widened slightly. I suppose you were unaware of this, but with the help of some of the High Saints, she managed to overthrow Petra the Tyrant and claim the High Throne for herself. She seeks someone else to take it and is simply acting as a temporary ruler for now, uniting pure and fallen angels under her banner. Styx smiled.
I'm happy for her.
Finally, as I said earlier, no ruler can rule alone. While I will do my utmost to help where I can, multiple perspectives can be helpful. Oedipus. He held out his hand to the side, and the Dark Saint chucked a scroll into his grip. Zariah unfurled it and held it out. Here is a list of names of individuals I feel would be very well suited to serving as advisors. Styx unfurled the list, reading quietly to herself.
Velnor, ancient in his years, well experienced with many of the noble houses of Hell. Grimnir, very knowledgeable about the outer regions. Lilith, experienced with Heaven. Ark, experienced with the Eternal Forest. Rise.
The list went on for a while. Styx looked up slightly overwhelmed.
How many do I need to pick, Zariah?
Zariah rubbed his chin. A good number would be 3 to 5, Your Highness. Styx nodded slowly, looking over the names again.
Alright then, I pick Velnor, Grimnir, and
She hesitated for a moment and looked up at Zariah.
Morgan.
Morgan, my queen? Styx nodded.
She's a friend of Calico. I've met her on a few occasions. As a pure angel, she'd be better suited to being an advisor for Heaven instead of Lilith, a fallen.
Zariah chuckled. Right you are, my queen. I will send out messages to Velnor and Grimnir, and one to Calico to ask if we may borrow her friend. He bowed. I believe that's all I have to report right now. I will get to work immediately. He turned and began walking to the door, the guards opening it for him. Styx let out a quiet sigh, rolling the scroll back up. She noticed a spider crawling along the throne's armrest and picked it up, suppressing a giggle.
You were Calico's spymaster for a while, Alana. Are you offering to be mine as well?
The spider nodded.
I'm happy to have another friend on board. Tell Grimnir I said hello.
The spider nodded again and poofed, vanishing. Styx slid off the throne and crawled on her knees over to Oedipus.
Here, let me help you with that. Thanks.
Chapter 64. Gathering the Advisors. As the day grew to a close and Lunatus Solatus darkened into a full moon, Styx stretched her arms and yawned, waving as Oedipus and Evelyn, who'd woken up at the end of all the work, carted the scrolls to the library. Zariah had returned by then, and after the girls departed, he gently grasped Styx's shoulder. You were curious about Nox, yes? Follow me, Your Grace. Zariah led Styx to the garden in the courtyard. For a moment, the Watcher was distracted by bad memories. This was the very place Nox had tasked her with stealing the essence of Apocalypse from Zoe. She shook her head slightly, still following Zariah until they stopped under a tree. Beneath was a small grave. An upright wooden cross wore Nox's robes, and sitting against the tree, seemingly asleep, was Mortis. Styx gasped.
What happened?
I am unsure of the details, and Mortis has been rather silent on the matter. Oedipus and I buried the bones, then Mortis showed up, ignoring all of us. He's been here ever since. Styx hesitated, then walked forward slowly.
Mortis?
The armored skeleton looked up, idly reaching for his mace, but stopped suddenly, letting his hand fall limp again. I will not pretend, Watcher. I have lost all motivation. My master is dead. The skeleton let out a harsh laugh, looking to the side, where the shadows were gathering. Go on then, Scarecrow. Kill me before I harm your precious queen.
Phobos, stand down.
My queen, perhaps you shouldn't step so... Styx held up a hand, interrupting Zariah as she stepped over the small wooden border and walked through the dirt up to Mortis.
You cared a lot for Nox, didn't you? He gave you unlife and a purpose. Without him, you...
She drifted off, her fingers curling slightly.
Mortis.
The dark sockets looked up into the purple and green eyes of the Watcher. She held her hand out.
We've been enemies for far too long. I want to change that.
Mortis laughed harshly again. You are too kind, Watcher. A ruler must know when to destroy her enemies, not befriend them. Styx did not retract her arm, a look of determination in her mismatched eyes.
I don't have the experience to rule hell. Zoe was aware of that, and even still, she paved the way for me to take the throne. Salem chose me and no one else to take her place for a reason. I still don't fully understand why it had to be me, but here I am. I'm willing to learn, and I have so many wonderful people by my side to help me.
Angel Rose ASMR, hello. Welcome in, welcome in. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath.
You're right, Mortis. I need to know when friendship isn't on the table, and I'm keeping that in mind when I say this to you. Let me give you purpose again.
Mortis continued to stare at her, unmoving, before he finally reached out as well and grasped her hand, letting the new queen pull him to his feet. The warrior chuckled. You are wiser than I give you credit for. I dare say you've changed from the fearful demon on the banks of the river, desperately trying to protect your friend. Fine then. You may consider us allies. Zariah let out a sigh of relief, and the sounds of laugh wheezes emanated from the shadows nearby. Zoraida stepped forward. You are far more talkative without Nox around, if I may say. Lord Nox was the persuasive one. I was merely the muscle. Mortis hefted his mace to his shoulder, then looked past them, and pointed towards the archway that led back into the castle. It would appear the corrupted one has need of you, Watcher. Styx looked over her shoulder and saw Evelyn waving.
Zariah, settle Mortis in, would you please? I actually have a role that may fit him.
She turned, jogging back to the archway.
What is it, Ev?
Without warning, Evelyn leaned forward and kissed her on the lips before giggling.
With that out of the way, I wanted to let you know, Grimnir and Vilnar are here in the throne room, and Morgan sent a message saying she accepts the position but she needs some time.
Styx was suddenly nervous but nodded.
Right. I suppose I should go meet with them then.
Evelyn hugged her for a moment.
Erwin has to be right beside you, don't worry.
As Styx entered the throne room and shyly took her seat upon the obsidian throne, she noticed the two individuals standing a few feet in front of her. The first she recognized as Grimnir, the frost aspect demon that could pass for human, if not for the literal ice encrusted on parts of his body, and the enormous spike fashioned of ice that took up one of his arms. The other she was less familiar with, a man in a dark cloak, and a hood that enshrouded his entire face. All she could really make out was the long white hair that protruded from the hood, and two white pinpricks, she assumed, were where his eyes were. They both bowed. Grimnir stood first and let out a hearty laugh. To think you'd be on the throne so soon, Watcher. Alana had tears of happiness when I left the cabin. Velner looked off to the side and crossed his arms. Yes, I'm sure there were many who were absolutely delirious with happiness to see you on the throne, Your Highness. As your advisors, however, he looked back towards her. There was a cold indifference in his gaze. I have no interest in games, so I'll get straight to the point. You're likely curious about the remaining houses not destroyed by the Dark Saints. He pulled a scroll from his cloak and walked up to the throne, going to a knee and holding it out. As Styx took it, he backed away again. I've compiled a list of all the houses of importance. Also, as your advisor, I'd recommend you find new demons and reform the Dark Saints. The Grey Falls are numerous, but they are still lessers. The Dark Saints can fill many roles, from elite guard to agents, to be sent into the world for whatever tasks you require of them. I'm sure Lady Calico will also recruit new angels to reform the High Saints. That is all I have to say at this time, my queen. He bowed. If there is nothing else, I will be taking my leave. With that, he turned and began to leave.
Okay. Thank you, Lord Vilnar.
Styx's wolf ear twitched. She wasn't sure, but it almost sounded like Velnor had let out a
Well, with that out of the way, anything you want to say, Grimnir?
Somewhere during the conversation, Oedipus had entered the room holding a scroll and standing to the side of the throne. Evelyn was on the other side. At this time, Your Highness, I got nothing really to report. Just showed up so you knew I was within. Styx smiled.
Alright, you're dismissed then. Thank you for accepting the position as one of my advisors.
Of course, Watcher. May our souls endure and deny all invitations to the river of death. The bearded iceman grinned as he turned to go.
May the river overflow with those that accept it.
Styx slumped against the throne.
Went better than I expected.
She looked to the side towards Oedipus and sat up straight again.
Actually, there is something else important to do. Erebus, come here.
Oedipus hesitated but came to stand in front of the throne and went down to one knee.
Yes, McQueen?
Styx stood up and patted her head.
Don't start the formalities now. Stand up.
Oedipus stood up, still uncertain. She glanced towards Evelyn, who shrugged, equally confused.
Erebus, how would you like to become a part of the family?
Oedipus's grey eyes widened.
Become a Miyarkar, but... That's not Russian. Become a Miyarkar, but surely not. Erebus Miyarkar, huh? I like it.
Evelyn grinned and stepped over to pat Oedipus on the shoulder.
Does that mean you'll be my sister then? Since I intend to marry Styx and become Evelyn Mercure?
Styx blushed.
Demons don't really use the concept of marriage, Ev.
The fallen laughed and wrapped an arm around her beloved.
But angels do. I may be a fallen, but I'm still an angel. Don't you want to marry me, Styx? I do.
Evelyn reached out, pulling Oedipus in and making it a group hug.
Then we're one big happy family then. Love you, Wolfie. I love you too.
Styx smiled. At Oedipus's impetus fidgeting, Evelyn only hugged them both tighter.
Come on, Aerie. Can't let my new sister escape the love now, can I?
They all laughed a bit. Styx laid her head against Evelyn's shoulder and closed her eyes.
I'm happy to have both of you at my side. Thank you so much. Don't mention it, Wolfie.
Zariah watched them from a rear door, slowly closing it and chuckling to himself. I can't say I ever saw Zoelia so happy about having people around her. He began walking to the library. There was still work to be done to solidify Styx on the throne. Chapter 65. The Cost of Rebellion. After the climactic battle that Cagliostro had so rudely interrupted, Morrigan partially obeyed Zoe's request, releasing most of the clans from her sole dominion, but taking the remainder back to Frosthold. The trek took her several days, and upon returning, she locked herself away in one of the feasting halls. For 2 whole days, she hesitantly studied the 2 black books she had stolen from Cagliostro, the Astral Codex and the Dark Codex. Due to her fear of the books, she had not gotten very far. With her feet up on the table, she hesitantly reached towards one before stopping herself. Thoughts of utilizing their power and taking Hell's throne for herself continued to plague her.
Eating in peace of Cagliostro's soul was a mistake.
She leaned back with a sigh. Her relaxed position quickly turned to her sitting up, palms down on the wood, as the double doors swung open. A cloaked man entered the feasting hall of Frosthold, long silver hair flowing from his dark hood, and his cloak flowed almost like liquid. He stopped at the end of the table and gave an exaggerated bow. It is a pleasure to meet the essence of Apocalypse in its sapient form. Do you have a name, or do you prefer Crystal Wolf? Morrigan immediately took a disliking to his sly tone, standing up straight, one hand on a codex.
You can call me Morrigan. Who are you?
The man stood up straight. I am a greater demon of blood, manifested from the red fountain at Zedek. You may call me Velnor. Morrigan hesitated.
What do you want?
Velnor looked towards the codexes on the table, causing Modigan to grip the one beneath her palm. He chuckled. I am not here to steal your precious book, Morrigan. I come with an opportunity. He began walking forward, along the edge of the table, approaching closer. You have your doubts, do you not? About the new demon upon Hell's throne? Styx Mirka, thought to be the last surviving demon with the soul aspect. He chuckled. Clearly that is untrue. Yet you are even more unique, holding both blood and soul in harmony. Hardly surprising considering your origin as a shard of the eye. He glanced at the codexes again. One of your power likely found it easy. But I am curious how you found yourself in possession of some of the listeners' beloved books. One of Modigan's hands ignited with a shifting green and purple flame, and Velnor raised his hands with a chuckle. I don't mean to pry, Modigan. As I said, I can help you. He stopped his slow walk. Tell me, Morrigan, don't you also think it wrong that a mere watcher has taken the obsidian throne? You are a fragment from the eye of the warp. A pure fragment, no less. Created by the listener to balance the Blood Queen's powers. As an inanimate trinket, you were called the essence of apocalypse. I think such a title still fits you, do you not agree? Morrigan hesitated.
What are you saying, Vilnor? Get to the point.
She already knew what he was suggesting, though. You should be on the throne instead. The Watcher has appointed me one of her advisors, and from a single visit I can glean the best way to strike. She has no knowledge of you, and the former queen has not told her of your existence either. Summon her to a meeting, away from her protection. Take her soul, and claim Hell as your own. Morrigan could feel those words speaking louder. Velnor was right. A part of her worried that Zoe would become involved. However, the Blood Saint seemed weak when they parted. She hesitated. I would advise you to make a decision soon, Your Highness. Lord Petra yet lives, but not for much longer. Once he dies, and the pockets of resistance in heaven are crushed, more allies will flock to the upstart's side. Many of the saints, both high and dark, are dead. Now is the perfect time to strike. Morrigan stared at the floor for a few moments, then picked up the Dark Codex and began flipping through its pages.
He glossed through the secrets of both dark and divine beings in his book. I'll kill the Watcher, then bring her back. Not as a claimed soul, but as a being entirely bound to me and me alone.
She started to giggle slightly.
Perfect.
Velnor bowed silently, whispering a dark rune under his breath, and leaving through a rift. It spat him out on the Stormlands, where he began to chuckle. One step closer to my vengeance, and another step closer to your ultimate goal, Cagliostro. Koss did not expect to wake up in a gigantic library of all things. At first he thought he'd ended up in Midheim or Sigmata, but no, this felt different. He wandered the damnable maze of shelves for what felt like days, despite his dark blessing of immortality granted by the Blood Saint. Hunger, sleep, and thirst could still weaken him. as his armor clanked, and he finally fell to his knees. A robed man approached and held out water and bread. Kos, champion of Gerani, I welcome you to the Hidden Librarium. Kos did not take the refreshment. Instead, peering up through his dark helm, the smiling mask of Cagliostro. Kos knew about the Hidden Librarium. He'd shared many stories with Zoe over a mug of ale. What he had truly enjoyed about her company was she treated the people of Gerani like friends and equals. It had ripped his heart in two during her confrontation against Styx, yet she'd redeemed herself when she showed up to aid Gerani as a fellow warrior against the soul-claimed clans of Olaf. Kos forced himself to his feet. He'd lost his axe and shield during the fight with Cagliostro's cultist. The listener sighed, the food and drink disappearing. You have no reason to trust a word I say, Kos Fellhand. However, I have a proposition for you. You see, the Blood Saint failed to hold back the Crystal Wolf, and even now, Iron Keep burns. Kos was not amused. You're lying. Cagliostro chuckled and reached for a book on a shelf, pulling it down and cracking it open. Fair point, noble warrior. However, whilst my words may lie, I am still a collector of knowledge. Accurate knowledge. This text is the history of Gerani, as I have observed and written. He held it out to Kos, who hesitantly took the book. As his helmet clanked every now and then, Kos's aura grew increasingly hostile. My people. He looked up as Cagliostro held out another book. Kos took it and opened it, confused as he beheld blank pages. What kind of... That, my dear Geranite, is the 10th Codex. The last powerful gathering of knowledge I had ever authored. I gave it willingly to you. In exchange, all I ask is for you to eliminate the Crystal Wolf. Kos hesitated as he closed the book. And why would I trust you, Masked One? If I wanted to harm you or deceive you, I'd have done so half a week ago when you were wandering around. Cagliostro sighed, a crack etching through his mask. Listen to me, human. You want revenge, and I am desperate. All I ask is you destroy the Crystal Wolf. You may keep my codex as a promise that I will not harm you or your people. After a long hesitation, Kos removed his helmet. His dark eyes stared into the eye slits of the listener's mask. The 10th Codex seemed to shrink down to a smaller size, and Kos slipped it against his neck for safekeeping. A dark rift opened as Kos put his helmet back on. I'll do it. For my people, not for you. As Kos started to enter the rift, Cagliostro stopped him and held out a new axe and giant shield. Gifts from me, if you will accept them, of course. I hope they serve you well, Kos Fell-handed. Kos begrudgingly took the weapons before entering the rift. As it closed, Cagliostro began chuckling before coughing violently. My soul is degrading. I'm running out of time. I do hope Velnor completed the task I gave him. He removed his cracking mask. A humanoid face with golden slit-pupiled eyes stared out across the dark corridor of bookshelves. A poorly sewn scar ran down the middle of his forehead, the flesh struggling to split, and a multitude of golden eyes trying to peer out. The listener crushed his mask to dust and reached into his cloak, pulling out a new one. The library shifted, creating a balcony, and in front of it, a gigantic window showing the ocean. Enormous warships loaded with bizarre technology had begun to make landfall at the Isle of Pillars. Battle lines were forming from the Outlanders and the mercenaries of Asbestos' precious guild. Cagliostro chuckled. The end is nigh, god of nothing. Events beyond your control are playing out all across your world. What actions will you take to stop them without your divine might? Chapter 66. Doubt and Love. The day after meeting with Velnor and Grimnir, Styx spent the day looking over lists and being taught the history of Hell. As Lunalis Solaris darkened for a new night, Styx and Evelyn began making their way to Zoe's old quarters. It still concerned the Watcher that Zoe had not shown up, but Evelyn and Oedipus had both been adamant her lack of presence was due to wanting a smooth transition for Styx. As they passed by some archers showing the sandy training ground, Styx slowed to a stop and leaned on the short stone wall, smiling softly. Out on the sand, Oedipus was running around, throwing blightwood branches and laughing as a small hellhound pup went after them, sometimes setting them on fire, sometimes returning them intact. As Styx watched, a smile slowly turned to a frown.
I'm worried about her.
Evelyn crossed her arms and leaned against the wall.
Because Ajax is a shadow of her own creation?
Styx nodded.
Do you think she'd be willing to come with us to the Eternal Forest? We could get her a real hellhound.
Evelyn hesitated, then shook her head.
I think she prefers a shadow. Remember when she said she burned her hovel down with everything in it? Shadow magic on this scale requires a very specific set of runes and a binded scroll filled with demon energy. Basically what I'm saying is, she didn't burn everything. She kept the ability to summon Ajax. If we got a real hellhound, it wouldn't be the same, you know?
Styx let out a soft sigh and pushed off the wall. Oedipus noticed them and waved happily before returning to playing with her pet. Styx waved back, forcing a smile before starting to walk again. Evelyn poked Styx in the side.
She's a Mirror now, Styx. Don't worry. We're all family. I'll make sure she's alright. We're sisters 4 after all. You're right. Thanks, Ev.
As they ascended the stairs and reached the corridor where Zoe's quarters were, Styx began to slow down. Evelyn kept walking at first, still talking.
Candidates for the Dark Saints. Mortis seemed pretty happy you asked him to be the new Dark Saint Shadow.
She stopped and turned.
Wolfie, what's the matter?
Styx shook her head slightly, clenching her fists at her sides.
It's just... We've been here a week and we still haven't slept together.
Evelyn snorted.
We slept together loads of... That's not what I mean, Ev.
Styx looked up at her beloved.
It's Zoe's bed.
Evelyn walked over and pulled Styx into a hug, kissing her on the forehead.
We can take a night trip back to your cabin if you want. Zariah will understand.
The Fallen grew concerned as she could feel Styx start to breathe heavier. Tears wouldn't be far off.
Wolfie, what's the matter?
Styx dug her face into Evelyn's shoulder.
Everything, I just... So much has happened.
She held tighter to Evelyn.
I was no one, Ev. Just the Watcher of the River, last of the Mirkers. For centuries, that's all I was. And then in a matter of months, I became queen. Zoe's gone. Salem's gone.
She choked on a sob.
I know Salem chose me, but I'm not cut out for this.
Evelyn mulled over Styx's words for a moment.
Whoops. No one said he had to rule forever. Someone just has to be on the throne. Once everything is settled, we'll ask Zariah for help to find someone else to rule.
Styx started shivering.
Styx?
The wolf demon pressed herself harder against Evelyn.
Stupid Aura of the River. Let's go back to the cabin.
Styx suddenly broke the hug. tears flowing freely down her cheeks.
No. If I can't even do this, how will I rule an entire kingdom even temporarily?
She sniffed and took Evelyn's hand, leading her to the room. Once there, she took off her trench coat and climbed into bed first, still shivering. Evelyn folded her wings tightly against her back and gripped her cracked halo. The glow of it faded slightly, and she laid it on the nightstand before yanking the covers back and straddling Styx's torso with a suggestive smile.
Want me to warm you up, babe?
Styx hesitated, then nodded slowly. Evelyn began to undress.
Instead of thinking about all these stressful things, think about how warm I'm about to make you, Wolfie.
An hour later, Evelyn pulled the covers up to both their necks.
I love you, Ev. Love you more.
Evelyn smirked, wrapping an arm around the wolf demon.
May our souls endure together and deny all invitations to the river of death.
Styx let out a big yawn.
May our bonds persist for eternity.
Styx fell asleep, and Evelyn giggled.
Sweet dreams, my love. I'll be by your side when you wake up.
Chapter 67. Dark Tidings. Styx sat idly on the obsidian throne, the raven crown levitating idly over her head. The only other person in the room with her was Mortis, standing off to the side against a pillar, leaning forward against his mace. Styx smiled slightly towards the new dark Saint of Shadow. Evelyn and Oedipus had agreed to remain as the Saint of Corruption and Deception, but that still meant Styx had to choose 5 more demons. Zariah had gone out to visit some other demonic villages like Zedek, Malta, and Ulgard to find potential candidates. Velnor and Grimnir hadn't returned since the other day, and Morgan had simply sent another message with an update of Heaven's state against Petra's loyalist. Styx let out a soft sigh. Her relaxed state was interrupted by Eris and Rias entering the throne room. Eris ran forward as Styx stood up, the little one-eyed demon wrapping her arms round the watcher with a smile.
We're happy to see you again. It has been a while.
Styx smiled as well.
I can't help but notice you're better at speaking, Eris.
Eris nodded happily.
Rias has been helping us to unite the voices. They still argue and taunt and give us headaches, but we're more whole than we used to be.
Rias approached the throne and bowed. Is this one mine?
I don't remember. Rias hasn't been in this for a while.
Lady Mirka. Styx shook her head.
Skip the formalities. We're all friends here, Rias.
The Sword Saint looked surprised for a moment, but nodded. Very well. Styx.
So,
Styx clapped her hands together.
what brings you girls here today? It's been forever since I've seen you.
Oh. I thought Rias was a male.
Rias is a girl.
Oh. Okay. Maybe you should take this one. Eris hesitated, then looked to her sister. Rias produced a scroll and held it out.
A summons, passed to us by a Garanite while we were visiting Iron Keep. I hate to ruin the mood, but I feel it is important.
Styx took the scroll with a frown and unfurled it, reading it silently.
The Crystal Wolf wants to meet with me? Who's that? She's bad news.
Eris's eye widened, the voice and her shock causing Styx to spin around. She couldn't even mouth words as she saw Zoe leaning on the throne with her arms crossed. Zoe gave a blank smile.
Long time no see, Styx. I don't intend to stay long, so don't ask. And don't worry about what I've been up to. Eris, Rias. As far as you're aware, I was never here.
She grabbed Styx's hand none too gently, pulling her behind the throne, where the cracked scrying pool was. Zariah had filled it with blood the other day, but no one had tried to use it yet.
We have two problems on our hands, Styx. One I'm dealing with, so don't worry about that. But the second is Morrigan.
A grim expression appeared on her face.
I trusted her. I shouldn't have. She intends to kill you.
The pool's blood shimmered, showing the red-headed woman standing alone out in a snowy field, waiting.
She doesn't look that dangerous. Trust me, Styx. She's worse than that. She's a sapient manifestation of my necklace. Not to mention she has both our aspects and two of Kag's stupid books.
Zoe faced Styx and gripped her shoulders.
A war is coming, Styx. Thanks to Kag's meddling, history is hell-bent on repeating itself. Morrigan is unknowingly one of his... Blech. Morrigan is unknowingly one of his pawns, and with her in the picture, heaven and hell are doomed. We can't let the realm fall.
Styx shrugged Zoe off, confused.
Think of the Hydra, Cassie. How would the realms fall if our How would the realms fall put our homes in danger? Simple.
Zoe gripped Styx's cheek softly.
We all know of the existence of the Eye of the Warp and the Tree of Life. We always thought they were locked away in impenetrable pocket dimensions, and some sort of bleed effect gave rise to Warpstone mana trees. But that isn't it. Guerny wasn't always a frozen hellhole, believe it or not. There's a portal there that leads straight to the Eye. The tree also has a portal, but nobody's found it yet.
Zoe took a deep breath.
If those portals are closed, in theory, so too goes our gateways into the mortal world. We'll be trapped. Cagliostro wants immortals to find them. The four kingdoms of the realm could care less about them, so he's relying on the outer kingdoms to conquer the realm.
Zoe backed away.
Meet with Morrigan and kill her. I'll do what I can at the guild to help out.
Styx's eyes widened.
Wait, the guild? I'll handle it. Worry about Morrigan.
Zoe vanished in a spurt of demon flame while Styx punched the scrying pool.
Damn it!
Styx sighed and walked back round to the front of the throne, looking down at Eris and Rias.
You too.
Styx hesitated and nodded towards Mortis, who nodded back.
Stay with Mortis. If Zariah, Grimnir, or Velnir come here, tell them where I've gone and not to follow.
Styx contemplated going alone. But in the end, she felt that would be dumb. She went to find Oedipus and Evelyn. Phobos would naturally follow of his own volition.
What is Zoe hiding? Codex of Knowledge, the Black Books. To date, there exist 13 Black Books, the infamous texts of immense power authored by the listener and the speaker. While all are dangerous in their own ways, the 10 codexes of Cagliostro are the most powerful. The Codex of Purgation. The first Black Book authored by Cagliostro, the Codex of Purgation was created long before the Ancient War as an experiment. Using it, Cagliostro brought ruin to a settlement in the Outlands, blighting the land with corruptive energy. That settlement will go on to become Etheria in the future. The Codex of Purgation, despite its name, is incapable of total annihilation, relying on dark magics to corrupt and destroy on a city scale. The Astral Codex. Space has fascinated all three races of Essence since the very beginning of Cagliostro's logging of history. What lay far above amongst the stars? While not comprehending the secrets fully, the Masked One's Astral Codex allows manipulation of space. The Codex of Plagues. Not explicitly penned as a book of power, the Codex of Plagues is still dangerous due to containing recipes of innumerable toxins and poxes, along with the magical power to befall them and help hapless victims. The Dark Codex. Overlapping with the Codex of Secrets in some regards, the Dark Codex also was not penned as a book of power originally. Its primary power comes from demonically infused spells, and many pages dedicated to the manipulation and elimination of angels and demons. The Codex of Secrets. This codex is the most dangerous of all of the Black Books, allowing one to see the future. Its pages are ever-changing, yet its power is too immense for even the listener, meaning he can only read into the future roughly 2 to 3 pages before all else becomes blank. The Divine Codex. While Essence has only ever known one god, the Divine Codex is a compilation of divine abilities and the secrets of how to create artificial gods. It also holds the location of the Tree of Life. Yet the book's covers are locked together mysteriously, and not even the listener can open it again. The Chronodex. The Black Book of Time. Together with the Astro Codex, immense feats can be pulled off by manipulating the very fabric of reality. Alone, the Chronodex is little more than a means to stop or accelerate time. The Arcane Codex. The second least threatening Black Book besides the Chronodex, the Arcane Codex is simply a collection of spells invented by demons, humans, and angels. While the book allows any spell within it to be cast without a true catalyst, the words must still be correct. The Codex of the Warp. Harboring a location of the Eye of the Warp and the secrets on how to craft perfect warpstone trinkets, such as the Essence of Apocalypse, the Warp Codex's cover was also locked, making its secrets unreachable to even Cagliostro. The 10th Codex. The last Black Book ever authored by Cagliostro, the 10th Codex is entirely blank, yet when freely given away, begins an irreversible process of corruption, as the power of the pages grants unimaginable power to the wielder. Once one has tasted of the 10th Codex, death is the only freedom. The last 3 Black Books are authored by the Speaker, better known as Jacqueline da Vinci. The Codex of Machines and the Clockwork Compendium bear no magical power, yet are dangerous in the fact they contain detailed blueprints created by both Da Vinci and her fellow inventors. The Eternity Code X exists as a failsafe, authored by the Speaker to counter the abilities of Cagliostro's books. Unfortunately, both the Eternity Code and the Codex of Machines are missing. Da Vinci remains in possession of the Clockwork Compendium Codex.
Chapter 68. Meeting of Minds. The ferry of the damned beached itself on the icy, snow-covered shoreline of Guernsey. Evelyn disembarked first, pulling Pox from her pouch and letting its corrupted tendrils grow to its spear form. She took a few cautious steps forward as Erebus and Styx followed behind.
You sensed her too, right?
The Watcher nodded.
She sat in my river for centuries. I'd be concerned if I couldn't.
Erebus manifested deceit into her hand, walking cautiously behind Styx, keeping the queen in the middle of her and Evelyn.
If I were Morrigan, I'd use this opportunity to kill you.
Styx thought back to Zoe's words.
That's probably the plan, but we're just gonna have to kill her first.
A rift opened in front of them, and out stepped the woman of the hour, Morrigan. Seeing her in the flesh, the trio noted many similarities she shared with the rest of them. Evelyn's red hair, Lady Calico's halo, a blade similar to deceit. Morrigan idly unsheathed her blade and sneered.
So, we finally meet Styx Mjolnir.
Evelyn took a protective step forward, but Styx gently pushed her back, going in front instead.
Guernsey is uncharacteristically quiet today. The crows aren't circling, no raiding parties are sailing by, no blood is flowing.
Morrigan let out a soft giggle.
Of course, we're at the westernmost tip of this frozen kingdom. Only the most remote of clans dwell this far out, and they're under my dominion.
Morrigan looked off across the horizon for a moment.
Styx Mjolnir, we need not come to blows.
She returned her gaze, dead gray staring into purple and green.
Hand over the throne and swear allegiance to me. With Zoe gone, I am most qualified to rule in her stead. I am the essence of Apocalypse, after all.
A smug grin etched itself across Morrigan's face. Styx reached into her trench coat, making sure her clockwork pistol was still there. She took a few steps, crunching through the snow.
I never asked to become the ruler of Hell. Honestly, I still don't want to.
She inhaled.
I'm willing to hand over the throne to another, but not to you.
Morrigan was silent, seemingly looking for something. She saw a subtle shift of snow in front of Styx, and her smile widened as she whispered to herself.
There you are, Scarecrow.
She giggled.
Should have come alone, Styx. You're giving me the advantage.
With a shattering of crystal, Morrigan reached into her chest and pulled out her core, the 3 colored flames dancing brightly within.
Shit.
A pillar of shadow grew in front of Styx, Phobos stepping out of it and beginning to sprint forward to try and stop what Morrigan was planning. In the same vein, Erebus had manifested a purple orb in her offhand and threw it. Time seemed to slow as Styx remained calm. Anything that could happen is already happening, all at the same time. Keep that in mind, and nothing can ever surprise you. You have already seen it before. She'd never learned how to manifest her weapons like Zoe and Erebus could, but in that moment she felt Soulblight's handle in her hand. Styx raised the bardiche above her head, both hands igniting with the soul flame, the green and purple coating the hilt. As Morrigan's core let out a pulse, shooting out a radius of green flame, Styx slammed her weapon down, a purple pulse rushing out. As the two collided, they cancelled out. Styx stumbled back, holding her head with an intense headache. Evelyn was instantly by her side.
Are you okay?
She could only nod, keeping her eyes closed. Morrigan did not fare much better as Erebus's orb shattered her arm, sending her core flying. Phobos leapt for it and grabbed it.
This wasn't much fun the first time. The second time is far less entertaining.
She snarled as her core sprouted transparent crystalline tendrils that began wrapping around Phobos's limbs, locking him to the ground. As another purple orb launched towards the woman, she deflected it with her sword.
Do that again, I'll kill you first.
Morrigan began running forward whilst her arm began to reconstruct itself. Styx had barely recovered from cancelling Morrigan's control pulse before noticing a black rift open between the two of them. Morrigan slid to a stop and all eyes turned towards the newcomer as a slick, wet laugh emanated from the armored figure. Kos fell-handed stood there, axe chained to one wrist, shield abandoned in the snow, and a book open in his armored gauntlets.
Kos?
Crystal Wolf, I've come to repay you for burning Garany to the ground. Kos's helm turned towards Styx. As for you, I'll destroy the soul aspect so this can never happen again. Chapter 69. Nice. Battle of Gods. Morrigan let out a cackle.
Is that so, almighty Kos? Fine then.
She began to advance on the Geranite instead. Erebus had ran to aid Phobos, her demonic orbs severing the tendrils of Morrigan's core again and again, yet they continued to form, attempting to rip Phobos apart. That left Evelyn and Styx, the latter of which was barely standing. Vendividara. Morrigan sidestepped an invisible force that sliced through the snow, while Erebus continued to struggle to save Phobos. Styx made a decision.
Evelyn, go help her. But Wolfie, go, Ev.
With a last look of worry, Evelyn flapped her rotted wings and darted towards the pair. She didn't get far before a solid wall of shadow rose in front of her, causing her to slam into it and fall into the snow with a groan. Kos laughed harshly. So this is the power of a codex.
To complete that game, asshole.
Morrigan summoned a codex of her own, but before she could open it, another invisible force blasted her back, severing both her arms and sending the book flying. Meanwhile, her core had begun to glow green again. Styx barely had time to register it, raising her scythe into the air to slam against the snow again. Erebus chucked her sword at the core, causing it to crack and wobble. Seemingly stunned, Phobos took the moment to grab it in his claw and slam it into the ground. Yet another tendril manifested, shooting upward and impaling through its true form in the cage at the center of his puppet. Several screams echoed out at once, the first from Evelyn as Kos had approached her and severed one of her wings with his axe, the second from Phobos, and the third from Styx herself as she witnessed all of this. Kos cackled, raising his axe for the killing blow, prepared to blow Evelyn to kingdom come if she tried to dodge. The fallen closed her eyes, accepting her fate. but the axe never came down. She opened them in time to see Styx had unfurled Soul Blight into its scythe form and had ran behind Kos, hooking her scythe on his axe. The Geronite snarled, taking a moment to swing his arm out, hitting Modigan in the cheek and cracking it, knocking her off her feet again. "Never charge at a Geronite, lass." As he started to turn to deal with Styx, the wolf demon unhooked and charged forward, pulling her pistol from her coat, shoving it against Kos's head, and pulling the trigger. There was a loud metallic screech as the bullet rent a hole straight through the metal helm. Without any hesitation, Styx lunged forward, gaining a grip on Kos's armor.
You belong to me, Kos.
The soul flame was snuffed instantly as a metal gauntlet wrapped around her neck, raising her off the ground before choke-slamming her back into the snow. Kos's helmet slipped off, revealing a grotesque skull lazily tilted to the side, flesh still leaking off like a liquid, and a single eye turning in its socket, enslaved to gravity. Evelyn was on her feet again.
Don't touch her, you bastard!
The Geronite threw its helmet full force at Evelyn, hitting her squarely in the head and flooring her easily. It turned its gaze back to Styx, raising a boot for a curb stomp. "Kos Feldhand is dead." The voice emanated from deep within the armor, echoing from the codex still clasped in his left hand. The armor was knocked away as Modigan threw her still regenerating body against it at full force. Styx took the time to crawl backwards and retrieve her scythe, turning just in time to see Phobos slam his bulk fully into Modigan's core. The crystalline woman let out a screech and seemed to freeze entirely.
Phobos, wait!
The metal puppet limped over to Styx and raised his claw, the three flames circling on the metal. Oedipus hesitated, then looked at Styx.
Take it. Use the codex on that thing.
Styx nodded and absorbed the flames, feeling suddenly immensely sick, but at the same time far more powerful. Phobos collapsed in front of her, laugh-wheezing before falling still. The true form rolled out of the cage and floated for a few moments. Styx heard Phobos in her mind, his true voice.
This is not the end, Styx Mierker. Survive for my sake. I will see you again. Dreams cannot be killed so easily.
Styx felt a tear in her eye as the orb dissipated. Her gaze quickly turned as she heard the clanking of metal. Kos's armor was on its feet again and almost robotically opened the 10th codex. An arm swung out, shattering Modigan's unmoving body as it started to read. Dariki, Telerix Muntus Noir. Styx didn't even bother summoning one of Modigan's codexes. She knew what she had to do.
Skoten.
The armor seemed to implode inward upon itself, crushing violently as if a black hole had opened within. With a final soft tink, it vanished completely. The 10th codex fell into the snow. Styx hesitantly walked forward and picked it up, feeling its power attuned to her. She threw it to the side where it disappeared, and quickly ran to Evelyn's side. Oedipus was already there, helping the fallen sit up.
Are you two okay? Haha, never better. Ow. I think I got a concussion though. Fucker threw that helmet at light speed.
Styx offered an apologetic smile before being interrupted by Oedipus.
It's over, isn't it?
The deception demon looked towards the ruined pile that was once Phobos' puppet.
Phobos is a dream demon. He'll be back one day.
Oedipus helped Evelyn to her feet as Styx stood with them, hesitating.
Take Ev to the ferry. I'll catch up. Got it. Don't take too long, Wolfie.
As they began to walk away, Styx turned toward the crystal fragments that were once Modigan's body. In the pile, she found what she was looking for. A singular blue warpstone, refined in its design.
You had every chance to kill me, but at the end you pushed Kos away to save me. think you changed your mind at the end.
Styx held her hand to her chest. As she pulled it away, she held a red flame and a smaller green one.
Maybe Mortis is right. I have a habit of befriending instead of eliminating my enemies.
She smiled slightly, pressing the flames against the crystal. A new crystalline core began to grow around it, containing the two flames within.
Let's go home, Morrigan. You and I should have a long talk.
Thank you for the Hydrate Redeem action. Chapter 70. Epilogue. Ancient armor, battle-worn and dented, clinked softly as a lone figure walked up a bloody slope. As the figure crested the hill, they stopped, holding a gauntleted arm up to shield their visor from the setting sunlight. Down the hill, and across a once pleasant meadow, now covered in bodies, lay a gigantic ruin built of the darkest obsidian. Not too far from it lay a burning dockyard with immense warships ran aground, also surrounded by corpses. Two figures walked up to the man known as Asbestos, one on the left bearing fox ears upon her head, and one on the right with dark feathered wings and piercing yellow eyes. Asbestos let out a sigh and began walking down the hill towards Blackrock, his mercenary guild that lay hidden beneath the obsidian ruins. The angel and demon followed. I thank you for your help. If it weren't for you two, the guild would have fallen. The angel Calico sighed.
That was only the first wave of Asbestos. I'll do what I can to help, but...
Zoe cleared her throat, garnering the attention of the two.
Yeah, you have your own problems up in heaven.
She stepped in front of the pair and began walking backwards.
You worry about killing Petra once and for all. My soul may be split into a million pieces, but I am still the first demon. I won't fall so easily to Ferris's technology.
The fox demon grinned.
It won't end with just Ferris. There are other kingdoms in the Outlands. It all feels deliberate. Cagliostro, I'm sure.
The trio stopped. Zoe glanced over her shoulder, watching various mercenaries toss bodies into the ocean or drag wounded comrades back into the guild.
The best course of action is to keep transferring your artifacts to our vaults in Darkstone and Hexad.
Calico nodded, but then bit her lip.
They went Da Vinci as well.
Zoe manifested Hellbringer, holding the jagged blade on her shoulder.
They'll have to go through me to get to Vince and Rise.
Asbestos began laughing, causing Zoe to frown.
What's so funny, old man?
Asbestos shook his head slightly. To think, after all their hatred towards you and the secrets I kept from you, here you are now, aiding the guild. Zoe's frown remained.
I'm doing this for the realm as a whole, as well as heaven and hell. Has nothing to do with you.
She sighed for a moment, impaling her blade into the dirt and leaning on it.
Alex, head home. I'll stay here and keep an eye on things. Remember that other thing I told you?
Hydrangea, welcome. Welcome in. Calico hesitated, then nodded.
The tree. Right. I'll keep looking.
A war horn echoed across the waves. Zoe smirked.
I forgot you went and made treaties with the kingdoms, Asbestos. That's a Garanite war horn. I'm looking forward to fighting by their side again.
She took a few steps back.
I'll take the raiders out to sea, see if I can meet up with some of Sigmara's warships. Don't forget our plan, Asbestos. Keep Urza's dead fleet beneath the waves until Ferris gets in range of the Isle of Pillars again.
Zoe teleported before Asbestos could respond. He was silent for a few moments before turning to Calico. You two are rather adamant about keeping the Watcher out of this war. Calico gripped her arm tightly.
Zoe's idea. Styx will have to help out eventually, whether she's ready or not. Till then, we'll do what we can. I'm returning to heaven, Asbestos. Contact me if you need me, and I'll try to come back.
Calico spoke a demonic rune, opening a rift and stepping through it, leaving the armored man alone on the hill. He continued his trek to the entrance alone. The realm is already unstable. Olaf's missing, Ulrich is dead. Midheim's split down the middle. Only Urza has his people in check. Asbestos scoffed as he walked to the shoreline instead and clasped his hands behind his back, staring across the waves. A storm is coming, and I'm not sure if we'll see the daylight at the other side anymore. He heard the sound of a boat running aground but did not react to it. Only when a silver-haired wolf demon walked into his vision with a sad smile did he finally speak. Your Highness.
Don't you start with me, Guildmaster.
Styx held up a codex.
Zoe told me what I needed to know. I don't intend to let the realm fall. The kingdom of hell is with you.
The ancient man began to laugh once more. Perhaps the storm will be merely a drizzle then. I thank ye, Watcher. Styx joined Asbestos in watching the horizon. Eventually, the pair could see Geranite longboats sailing off into the distance. Styx reached into her coat, her hand wrapping around the crystalline core of Morrigan, still slowly regenerating itself.
After this war, I'll grant your wish, Mori. You can rule in my stead.
End of Book 1.
Woo!
That's it, everyone. We did it. The Realm, A Tale of Blood and Souls is complete. Took us approximately 9 episodes across, what was it, 2.5 months?
Something like that.
Yeah.
They were stretching hydrate, Cassie.
Yes.
This has been a fun time.
Yes, indeed. Indeed it has.
Now I need to finish on my other 2 books so we can have another reading session.
Yes, indeed. I've had a sneak peek at some of the things that Zoe's working on, and they're good. They're really good. So, as soon as those are ready, we will have another long session of reading ASMR, which I'm sure will span another couple of months. Although hopefully this time won't be interrupted by other things. And yes, I look forward to that.
I'll see you in 3 years, Rex. I mean...
Oh, wait.
No, we should read other stuff while I am working on those, though.
Yeah. Again, if you've got a suggestion for something, I am more than open to it. If you happen to have anything that is more of a cyberpunk feel to it, I would love to do that. Mainly doing it mainly for Jen, because she actually loves cyberpunk. I didn't even know that about her until she told me about it. Which reminds
It's
me,
not, like, much to it yet, but I've shown you my Tale of Mercenaries story.
I think you did. You showed me a little bit of it.
Is that cyberpunk enough? I can work on that.
I think that one, yeah, that's got a cyberpunk feel to it. A bit more futuristic and space travel like, yeah. But yeah, Zoe actually showed me a story concept that she's working on, and I hope you don't mind me talking about this.
I can pop it up on stream if you want. I'm not shy about doing it.
Yeah, feel free. It's something called The Madness of Two,
Yep.
which has those of you who are lovers of comic books and the like is. I think that you'll like this. Basically, if you like anything that's comic or manga, maybe even a slight touch of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, maybe? I don't know. You'll like this. This is,
Kind of cool. I gave it that vibe unintentionally because I just kind of wrote this in an hour.
nice. I mean, that's not bad for an hour's work. That's 5 pages of just a really interesting short story here. Yeah, no, I like this. Like I said, this is good that you're practicing. It's good that you're kind of keeping the creative juices flowing, like you say in the foreword. Yeah. Let's definitely keep this up. Tell you what, you take your pick of what you'd like us to work on next. If you want to do this again, same time next week, we can. If you'd prefer to have a little more time to work on it, that's all right too. It's whatever works for the author.
What is the deadline for when I need to tell you that I want to do something? Because I could probably pump out a couple chapters for Tale of Mercenaries before next Wednesday.
Oh, I mean, I usually decide my stream schedule about it's solidified by Sunday night. So if you wanted to, did you want to do another session next Wednesday?
I'll give you a break for a little bit while I pump out some chapters.
Okay, all right. Just let me know.
Like Cassie just now said, every other week would give me time to figure out what I want in the chapter.
Yeah, no, I like that. That works.
Then I'll pump out enough that we can do a read session for at least an hour or something, and then work on it for the next other week.
Yeah. No, I like that. That we can make that work, definitely. All right then. Well, this brings us to just over 2 hours now. So yeah, that's I hope you've all enjoyed this.
Just enough pages to make it to 2 hours.
Yeah. I mean, that's usually about the pace we've been going. We probably would have wrapped earlier if one of those weeks we had gone more than 1 hour.
I know the first couple episodes went for 3 hours, and then I think it was Pack Read 7 we went for 1 hour.
Yeah, I just wasn't feeling up to doing. I didn't have the energy really to do 2 hours.
Maybe it was fate because we ended up with the perfect timing for the end.
It's a hell of a way for fate to work. Believe me when I say.
Yeah, shit happens, but then things get timed better.
Yeah,
even if it's next.
That's true. That's true. All right then. Well, on that note, do we want to raid out to somebody?
I'm gonna keep streaming.
Oh, okay. Then you know what? I'm going to hand off everybody on my side to you.
Everybody in my chat, make sure you give Rexworth a follow. He's a good friend.
Yes, thank you.
And subscribe too if you can.
Yes, I would appreciate that. I've got a sub-point goal of 30, and we're about 1/3 of the way there. Every little bit is appreciated, always.
Cassie said he's got an addicting voice. Does.
So I'm told. 10
out of 10. Could not find a better narrator.
So I'm told, especially by my dear lovely girlfriend.
And I can't think of anyone else that could yell silence in such a powerful way.
Yes, that's I made it a redeem. So, all right then. Well, everybody on my side, let's transfer over to Zoe's stream, and our dear Demon Fox will take it from here. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Zoe, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for this
Glad you
opportunity.
enjoyed it.
Yes, I'm looking forward to the next one.
Can't wait to have something else exciting for you to read.
Indeed, indeed. Keeps me busy, and yeah.
Gives you something to do if you don't know what you're gonna do with your Wednesday.
I know, yeah. It's always good to have a little more of a chill stream of reading ASMR. I like it. I like it. All right, everybody. I'll see everyone tomorrow night on the Sway Gaming channel, continuing Yakuza 0. But for now, I'm Lord Rexworth, wishing you all the best, and God bless.